foreign countries. And in January of that year, there was a Ardh Kumbh Mela in Prayag. And Srila Prabhupada took them all there, where they did Nam Kirtan, Prasad distribution. Prabhupada was lecturing every day. And then in 1977, even though Srila Prabhupada's health was very difficult. In fact, it was the last year of his pastimes on this earth. Despite all inconvenience and the freezing cold there, he personally went to join his devotees at the Kumbh Mela in Prayag, just to put that emphasis of the importance. So at this very moment in Haridwar, the Kumbh Mela is happening. Millions of people are gathered. All types of sadhus from all the different traditions are together. And Mother Ganga is flowing very mercifully. I will speak for just a few minutes about how the original Kumbh Mela, or the very origin of this festival. It's described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto. And Krishna, he stages things in such a way to give the most crucial lessons to the world. Because in order to make spiritual progress, not only philosophy, but stories of how people follow the philosophy, and also stories of people who do not follow the philosophy, of what happens. And when Krishna wants to speak to the whole world for all time through holy scriptures, he makes his lessons on such a grand scale, with such powerful personalities, that lesson remains. Yes? It's like if Arvind Patel from Borivali makes an aparad to somebody, we're not going to talk about it 5,000 years later. But if it involves Indra and Durvasa Muni, it's big news forever. So Krishna stages things in a way that it will have longevity, the lesson. And Shukadev Goswami, he had 7 days to speak to Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj wanted the essence, the highest perfection. He was a fit candidate. For Parikshit Maharaj, there was no need of trying to gradually build a bridge to connect him to the path of Dharma. Parikshit Maharaj had darshan of Krishna when he was in the womb of his mother and saw Krishna save him. He witnessed how his mother, Uttara, was crying out to Krishna, please save my child. There's no way I can do anything to help him. When the Brahmastra was coming, and he had uncles like Arjuna, Yudhisthira, Bhima, grandfathers, yes? very special person. And when he was cursed to die in 7 days, he had the most powerful armies on earth. He could have marched to Swami Grishi's ashram, punished him for this misdeed of his son. But Parikshit Maharaj understood the will of the Lord. Today, we heard a question from Bhaj Bihari Prabhu that if we're mistreated, should we tolerate it and forgive? Or should we clarify our position as being innocent? Or should we fight back? According to how we could best serve the interests of God, that's how a devotee decides. Bhima, he was a very, Ananda Vrindavan Prabhu asked the question, it's very tempting to be like Bhima. To fight, to eat, so many things. But actually Bhima was a great Vaishnava. He was forgiving, he was self-controlled, but he did what he personally could do to best serve Krishna. Yes, Krishna wanted him to fight that battle. So he had to do the needful for that purpose. Yudhisthira was doing all the forgiving and everything, but it didn't work. And Bhima would have followed behind, but it didn't work. So he did what Krishna wanted him to do. When Draupadi was offended, Bhima was very upset. It wasn't an offense against him, it was an offense against a great devotee, his own wife. But then we take his, what would you call it, nephew, Parikshit Maharaj. And he was cursed to die in 7 days. He didn't get angry. He didn't take revenge. Completely forgave the little child, Shringi, and his father, Swami Grishi. Not only did he forgive them, but he accepted that he was at fault. He made a mistake. And he took it as the Lord's blessing to be cursed to die in 7 days. And because he did it this way, he staged the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was simply doing what would be best for the interest of Krishna's desire, to help the fallen souls in this world. So we find Parikshit Maharaj and Bhima Maharaj, they appear to be doing very different things, but actually they're one. They're both doing what would best serve the interest of the Supreme Lord. They were both like puppets surrendered to the will of Krishna. So when Sukadev Goswami was under that banyan tree on the bank of Ganga, with Parikshit Maharaj hearing his questions and seeing his sincerity, he took the most important, essential histories, not only of this universe, but of a whole wide spectrum. Sukadev Goswami was a self-realized soul. His father was Vyasadeva, who's Trikalagya. He took the essence of all knowledge and the histories that portrayed that best to teach people the path of how to attain pure devotional service. And it's very interesting how the Srimad Bhagavatam chronologically progresses. In the 8th canto, he elaborately explains the surrender of Gajendra. who was not a human, he was an elephant. And how he was big and he was strong and he was proud. He was the king of the jungle. Even the lions and tigers would offer all respects to him in fear. But in that situation, even though he was the biggest and the strongest of everyone, in this material world, whether you're a demigod or an elephant, or anything in between, or an insect, situations will come beyond our control. Material nature is so expert at getting us. Nothing could harm Gajendra. But when he was in the water, for those moments, and he wasn't in his own element, he was struck by a crocodile. Now on the land, Gajendra could have crushed that crocodile in moments. But in the water, the crocodile had an advantage over him. So it was very inconceivable. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time to be defeated. Otherwise, nothing could have harmed him. And please know that he was not living in, he was not living in the forests of Kerala. He was on a heavenly planet. Very special place. But still, the crocodile got him. And he fought with all of his strength, with all of his might. But as time progressed, he understood there was nothing he could do. He was actually on the verge of death. He was about to die. And there was nothing he could do about it. It was a situation totally out of his control. Now this is extremely painful. Because when we come to this world, we want to be controllers. And when situations are painful, miserable, and totally out of our control, it's not only humiliating, it's miserable. But it was that situation in which Gajendra gave up his attachment to his elephant body and his elephant mentality and all the material possessions all around him because he knew it was all going to be taken away in a second. And at that point, when he gave up this bodily conception, knowing it wasn't going to last, and he gave up all of his illusions that he was the proprietor and he was the controller and he was the provider, then he remembered his devotional activities from a past life. He was a devotee of Vishnu, and he learned many prayers. And he plucked a lotus flower and put it in the air and offered it to Krishna, and offered his prayers of love, prayers of surrender. And amazingly, Gajendra was not asking, please save me from this crocodile. Please save my life. His prayer was pure devotional service. I'm yours, my Lord. I offer my body, my words, my life, my everything to you. In the form of this lotus flower, I'm offering you my very life. Do what you like with it. I'm yours. And Krishna came down and saved him. But how he saved him is interesting. He didn't just save his life and tell him, now you go back home. He saved his life and then gave him a spiritual body, put him on an airplane and sent him to Vaikuntha. It was real liberation. And then after this story, Shukadev Goswami, he talks about different manvantaras, different manus, and different powerful beings who were administrating the universe. And he comes to the point of Ajita, who was an incarnation of Vishnu, who was born in this world. And with his help, the Devas and the Asuras churned the ocean of milk. And when the mountain Mandara started falling into the ocean, the Lord incarnated as Kurma avatar to balance it. And Parikshit Maharaj, he was so awake when he heard this. He wanted clarification. This is absolutely fascinating, churning an ocean of milk. Please tell me about this, and how the Lord appeared as a giant turtle to help. And the story begins again with Indra. Now, when we talk about Indra, two things. We should, with great respect, because he's a deva. And his mistakes, when they're in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he's serving the purpose of the Lord. So we should understand, if your mistakes were going to be recorded forever in Srimad Bhagavatam, then we would acknowledge your mistake as being something very holy. But they're not. So don't make mistakes. Indra could do it and spread the message of Sanatana Dharma and pure devotional service through his mistakes. Because ultimately he's Krishna's puppet. Krishna's using him. From a never perspective, with the different manus changing, different people take the post of Indra. Yes? So the person who made this mistake is not the Indra of today, most likely. So don't worry about it. It's like if you criticize the President of the United States, I won't say anything about India here, but if you criticize 5 presidents ago, the present president doesn't really care. Because it's not about him, it's about somebody who was in his post who made some pretty serious mistakes. So Indra, power, wealth, prestige, riding on his elephant, and Durvasa Muni, renowned saint, who owns nothing. Total difference between Indra and Durvasa. Durvasa is a sage that has no possessions, that travels around the world in the different places, just performing tapasya, teaching people about yoga. And Indra is the king of kings of the heavenly worlds. So Indra's on his elephant, and Durvasa Muni is standing on the ground. Now Durvasa Muni knows his powers, and he wants to bless Indra. So he takes a fragrant, beautiful garland off of his own neck and offers it to Indra. Sometimes, when you have a lot and you really think yourself great, you cannot be grateful. If you're grateful, it's very unlikely that you'll ever make any serious offense to anyone. But if you're ungrateful, it's inevitable that you will. A grateful person thinks, I don't deserve anything. In fact, I deserve so many difficulties in my life. And if somebody does good for me, if somebody tries to help me, We feel so grateful to that person. And even if things go wrong, and we're put into a suffering situation, we're grateful. We're grateful that it could be worse, and it's only this. Or we're grateful because it's an opportunity to turn to God. We're grateful because it's an opportunity to learn something. Whether we understand what we're supposed to learn or not, if we're grateful, the message is revealed to you. If we're not grateful, the message is never revealed to you. So gratitude means any situation. We're grateful to whatever comes in our life, even if they're the reactions to our own mistakes. We're grateful that God, through material energy or directly, whichever way, is trying to rectify from making these mistakes in the future. And if we've done nothing wrong and still some things are coming on me, at least that's what it appears. Even if we cannot understand specifically why, we're grateful because we have faith in the goodness of Krishna. We have faith that if we turn to Krishna, that's the real success in any situation. Success isn't how things turn out in this world. Success is how we turn to Krishna in the process. Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi, they had 8 daughters, and each of them died immediately after birth. Now, anyone who is a mother knows how painful that must be. You're carrying a child in your womb for 9 months. And you love this child, you want to serve this child, you have no children at all, and you're yearning to have a child, and then it dies. You see it, it's so beautiful, and it dies. 8 in a row. But Sachi Mata and Jagannath Mishra, with each time they continuously increase their love and devotion to Krishna. They weren't grateful that the child died, but they were grateful for the opportunity to love Krishna, to serve Krishna, to surrender to Krishna, even in that most sad situation. Then they had a son, but he soon left home and took sannyas. Very difficult life. And when Krishna, in the mood of Radha, entered into the womb of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi, he remained in the womb for about 13 months. Hare Krishna. Now, for you brahmacharis, you don't understand what this means. That's a long time. That's almost 1.5 times a pregnancy. So everything was happening, and they were grateful. And the result, Lord Gauranga Mahaprabhu became their son. They were really grateful. But then he took sannyas and left them. So through these beautiful incidences, we understand what gratitude really is. To see the opportunity. But when we become proud, we cannot be grateful. Actual gratitude is a symptom of humility. Trinadapi sunichena taro ibasi hishnuna amani namane dena kirtaniya sadahari. To be humble like grass, tolerant like tree, offer all respect to others and expect none in return. That is the formula by which one could truly take shelter of God through His holy names. Because when we're humble, we can actually be grateful. Because when we're humble, we think, I don't deserve anything. Whatever apparently good or bad is coming, I'm grateful for the chance. It's a gift of God. And I know what to do in this situation. To bow one's head and turn to God with love. That is gratitude. Queen Kunti prays, Janmaishwaraya Shruti Shibir Edamanamada Puman Naivarhat Yivadatum Vaitwam Akinchana Gocharam. That those who have material opulences, especially wealth, beauty, education, and prestige, which may come from a high birth or whatever, such persons, the tendency is they become proud of their beauty or their knowledge or their strength or their wealth or their fame. They can't be grateful. They can't cry out the name of the Lord with feeling. So here is Indra. He's beautiful. He has unbelievable wealth. He's incredibly intelligent and highly educated. He's very famous, very high birth. So Durvasa Muni, this little yogi with matted hair, just walking along the street, gives him a garland. Indra gets garlands all the time. Yes? It's interesting. Somebody that comes from the West, when they come to our temple, not a devotee person, but just an ordinary person, you give them a garland and they're absolutely thrilled. They never got a garland before. Really, they're thrilled. They're just so, they put it in their little plastic bags and save it to show everyone at home, and they have people take photos of them and they show all their friends. You see, they put a garland on me. I wore a garland. They gave me a garland. It's something very special and new. But when you become a Swami like Chandramali Swami, everywhere you go, people are smothering your face with garlands. Yes, and you're just taking them off and saying, I wish they'd stop giving garlands. So we take things for granted. We take great things for granted. Now, a great personality doesn't even take the simplest things for granted. Srila Prabhupada was like that. If anyone did anything to assist him at any time in the mission of his Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada would never forget that. He was so grateful. Whether he was just coming off the Jaladuta and he had nothing, or whether he was flying in jet planes around the world 13 times with hundreds of devotees waiting for him wherever he went, whether he was staying with the poorest people of America in the Bowery, or whether he was living in beautiful palaces in his temples, Prabhupada was the same. He was grateful for even the simplest thing, whether it be a flower offered or just the enthusiasm of a devotee service. So here we find Indra, because he was proud, he couldn't appreciate the simple gesture of being given a garland. Yes? And therefore, instead of seeing the blessing, he just saw it as something very ordinary. This is a very, very critical lesson for all of us. Everything in Krishna consciousness is a divine blessing of the Lord. And how much we deprive ourselves if we take it to be something ordinary. Every time we sit down to chant the holy names, every time we hear from a Vaishnava speaking, every time we open the Srimad Bhagavatam to read Prabhupada's purports, every time we come before the deity, every time we receive prasad, we are receiving divine blessings. Factually, it may have taken us millions of births of being born, struggling, and dying until we finally get these blessings. It's not ordinary. It's very rare. Any connection to bhakti is the rarest thing. But we benefit to the degree we're actually really grateful for it. Because when we're grateful, we're going to acknowledge it, and we're going to respect it. We're going to reciprocate with Krishna and with his devotees for giving it. But for Indra, it was just another flower garland. The Apsaras, the Gandharvas, the Siddhas, the Janaras, they're all giving him garlands all the time. Here's another one. So he didn't see the beauty of God's grace in this garland. He wasn't grateful. What did he do with it? He recklessly, carelessly just threw it on the trunk of his elephant. Now, elephants, we just read about Gajendra just before. It's very interesting because we're two elephant stories run after another. Now, if Indra was riding on Gajendra before the crocodile, Gajendra probably would have done the same thing. Yes? It's interesting because when Gajendra was in the mouth of the crocodile, please listen carefully because this is an interesting point. When Gajendra was in the mouth of the crocodile, he plucked a lotus flower and offered that flower with love and devotion from the heart of his hearts to Krishna. Yes? Because he was totally humbled. He was grateful for the chance. Before I die, I'm offering my life to you, my Lord. Thank you. Now here is a whole garland of flowers. And they were probably every bit as nice as that lotus flower Gajendra offered. And this elephant, because he wasn't in the jaws of a crocodile, he was strutting around with the king of heaven on his back. Very prestigious position for the elephant, too. He wasn't grateful either. He didn't understand the value. Sometimes, unless we're really in desperation, we don't understand the value of something. Necessity helps us to understand something's value. An example. If you're bathing in the Ganga and you open your mouth and somehow or other Ganga just fills your stomach, yes? And you just drink way, way more than you have the capacity to drink. And then you come out of the Ganga and you're like, you're going through all sorts of physical difficulties, and someone offers you a glass of water. How much will that water have value for you? Depending on who you are, you may just throw it down, or you may just say, well, later. It has no value for you because there's no necessity. But what if you just do Nirjal Ekadasi? And while you're doing Nirjal Nikadasi on that day, you do a full Govardhan Parikrama. And it's the month of June, before the rains, when it's at the hottest point. Yes? And somebody offers you a glass of water. What is the value that that glass of water has for you at that point? It has incredible, it has life-saving value because of necessity. A humble person always feels necessity. A proud person is full. Yes. I don't know how you say it in India, but in America, if somebody's really proud, they say you're full of it. I'm not going to say what the it is, but you're full of yourself. You're just full of yourself. And therefore, you can't really appreciate anything of anyone, really, from your heart. You can't be grateful because you're just filled with yourself. But a humble person, it's like you're empty inside. That is a blessing. Then, whatever blessing, whatever mercy has, we recognize its value. And we're grateful that we're receiving it, and we reciprocate with a thankful heart. So for Indra, it's just another garland. For the elephant, didn't mean anything. He took that garland and threw it between his legs. And being between his legs, the legs came together as he was walking and crushed, smashed the garland. And then the garland fell to the ground, all smashed on the street side. Durvas Muni. Krishna uses him too.